They're outraged because they've lived too many years, been through too many struggles, suffered too many bruises, and clearly have very, very, very little to show for that sojourn here in this country. I want to be real clear about this. If you erase it, we will replace it. It's that damn simple.
Here Mfume speaks everything out and speaks about how some people want to erase the African American or Black American history by removing some of the arts from their museums, or actually even quitting it all, which they do not or they will not accept. And he clearly says that if you try to erase it, you're going to replace it for over and over and over again. That's what he himself said. Maybe you don't know the source of this speech or why he said that you are trying to quit or to erase our history. Let's go back a little bit to see what happened 5 months ago. And I'm going to be back with my remarks for each and every video that you're going to watch. These are the same people, same Black Americans and some white people who are speaking about the erasing the history of Black Americans, which people will not accept.
The U.S. government is denouncing black art and techno. This is an official statement from the Trump administration, labeling this exhibit inspired by Detroit duo Drexciya as anti-American propaganda. If you don't know about Drexciya, they're one of the most influential Detroit techno and electro duos ever in all of history. Their music takes place in an underwater world inhabited by the descendants of enslaved African women who were thrown overboard during Middle Passage. It's a bit of a semi-revisionist look at Middle Passage as a realm of possibility and not annihilation. It's one example of black art alongside underground resistance who are also using techno to discuss the historic shortfalls against African people. Many artists over the decades have made Drexciyan art, short stories, comic books, even commissioned real-life monuments inspired by the myth. Ayanna V. Jackson uses her own body, sculpture, animation, diving, video, and effects to reckon with the brutal history that cast African people out to sea, while envisioning a world of powerful, resilient women. This exhibit received critical acclaim on launch, and now it's among the works of art targeted by the White House under the Trump administration, criticizing the Smithsonian's programming. Also on this list include works of art by transgender athletes and works related to Latinas with disabilities. It's all so stupid. Like, do artists not have a right to express themselves, especially through work inspired by real-world events? And at the same time, James Stinson of Drexciya is just too powerful, making the government chuds clutch their pearls from beyond the grave. I think Drexciya should serve as inspiration for everybody who wants to insert political messages into their music. Even if it's just instrumental electronic music, I hope we see the return of Jackson's exhibit soon.
The White House is continuing its efforts to erase African American history. In this latest attempt, Trump has ordered the Smithsonian Museum to turn over all materials. He wants to review the institution's exhibits, programs, and internal governance to ensure that the museum's operations aligned with Trump's view of American history. The move was communicated to Smithsonian staffers in an email by Smithsonian Secretary Lonnie Bunch III, who says the Institute will continue to turn over additional records to the White House on a rolling basis. This stems from a letter Trump sent in December requesting materials that he says remains outstanding, setting a deadline for Bunch to turn over all records earlier this week. It's still unclear which materials Trump is requesting to review.
I'm going to make this quick. So the latest executive order, which is titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History, is targeting these Smithsonian museums.
I guess you've now saw what they're trying to do. Erase the past, people forget, and then make it happen again. This is what happens. When you forget your past, your future is going to be the same as your past, no matter how your past is. Be it negative or positive, if you really forget your past, it's going to happen again. That's why it is very important for you to keep the past, for you to check on and remember and see what happened. Do you think this is fair? Smithsonian Museum has been there for a long period of time. And imagine that they remembered to review the art crafts there some months ago. And why didn't they review them as early as it started? And now that's when you are remembering to review the materials and art crafts, which represent Black, not white, Black American history. I don't know if it's trying to erase or delete the Black American history from people of all over the world to see what really happened, or it's trying to just make the story or the history of America in different ways. You're trying to portray the image of America which maybe is not true, especially regarding to Black Americans. I don't know how you think about this, but for me, it's unfair. It's totally unfair unless you have a very solid reason to do so. Now let's proceed with my next clip, and I'm gonna be back with my remarks.
Welcome to America. Tell me what you're thinking.
Just so much.
Kleenexes, please.
I've always been interested in history and the history of Black people. I took Afrocentric classes at UNL. My grandma lived at 2821 West Kentucky Street. I've read so many books, and now I belong to a church that's primarily African American, and I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is literally what is happening in the exhibition of this museum they are closing. Some white people, they really want to experience what Black Americans faced in the past. And for this woman, imagine for this woman, if that museum was not there, she wouldn't have get chance to really experience how Black Americans were chained and prisoned. And this is what people are trying to really prevent. We're trying to prevent people to see and experience what Black Americans really faced. And when you try to delete the past for some people, don't think that you're going to make their future better. Because when you don't know your past, you cannot make your future better. The past is what always tells you to remember and get the lessons. And imagine if for some generation to come, they're not going to know what really happened for their fellow Black Americans. And this is going to face them to not build their future according to their past, which they don't know.
We don't seem to learn. If anything, we should be looking at history to learn and to make sure that we are taking advantage of what we've learned. You know, it was Abraham Lincoln in 1848 who addressed his countrymen in Edwardsville, Illinois, and he said, and I quote, "When you have succeeded in dehumanizing the Negro, when you have put him down and made it but for him to be, but as the beast of the field, when you have extinguished his soul in this world and placed him where the ray of hope is blown out, as in the darkness of the damned, are you quite sure," he asked, "that the demon you have roused will not one day turn and rend you?" He said, "What constitutes the bulwark of our freedom and our independence? It is not," said Lincoln, "our crown and battlements. It is not our armies and our navies. It is not our bristling seacoast. For all those things are not our reliance against tyranny, because they can all be turned against us without having made us weaker for the struggle. Our reliance," he said, "as Americans is in the love of liberty which God has planted deep within all of us, regardless of how we look and where we come from." He said, "Our reliance is in the spirit of freedom, which prides itself as the heritage of all men in all lands everywhere." And then he admonished, "Destroy that spirit, and you would have planted the seeds of despotism at your own doorstep. Ignore," he said, "the chains of human bondage, and you prepare one day for your own limbs to wear them. Accustom," he said, "to trample on the rights of other people, and you would have lost the creative genius of your own American independence, and as such would become the fit subjects of the first cunning tyrant who rises among you." Sound familiar? History taught us and still teaches us that we can't keep making the same mistakes. So I know this is a big discussion about a lot of aspects about the museum, but I'm here as a black man who grew up in segregation, who wasn't allowed to go certain places, who drank from a water fountain that said colored, who found his mother and his father unable to do anything other than basic day work. And if for no one else, if for them and their spirit and all the other nameless and faceless black men in this country and black women who made their bodies bridges, that some of us could get to the university, that some of us could get to a good job, that some of us could get to the United States, if for no other reason. I want this to go out loud and clear. And I'm not speaking just on behalf of myself. I know that I speak on behalf of so many people who are not here today. We will not let you destroy that museum. No matter how long it takes, how many battles are required, how much effort is needed, we will not allow that to happen unless you find a way to kill all of us and walk over our bodies to change history. That history is too sacred. It is too precious, and it will not be erased. Because, as I said, if you attempt to erase it, we will continue to replace it over and over and over again.
Here's your very funny reminder that Black history is inevitable. It is not lost on me that crowds of people made their way to DC on the 4th of July to participate in USA 250 programming that explicitly and specifically excluded Black history. It is not lost on me that that crowd of people had to shelter from a storm in the African American History Museum. The ancestors were in their bag. These people knew exactly what they were going to. Out there with literal white nationalists just to end up seeking safety in the Black People Museum. The irony is crazy, but it's deeper than just this rainy day situation. A consistent thread throughout the history of America is the story of Black people fighting for more in this country. Expanded access in education and healthcare and workplace protections, just to name a few. Infrastructure that helps everyone. And as crazy as it sounds, this situation is a part of that history now. Black people fought for over 100 years just to get that museum built, often fighting the very politicians that these kinds of people revere. And despite a century of pushback from your people, we won. That museum exists. You're welcome. I hope some of these people accidentally got radicalized walking around the museum like, oh my God, we did what?
Maybe this happened to show these white people that the people they are excluding from some event and some opportunities, they might be the one who are going to help them in certain circumstances. I don't know, but maybe it was even coincident. What do you think? Let me proceed with my next video. And please remember to put your comments and views in the comment section.
We've been told multiple times that Trump is erasing Black history because he instituted what people call anti-DEI measures, which ultimately caused some exhibits at Black history museums to be cut or stopped. But let's go ahead and unpack this. So we were told that Art Museum of America's canceled show of Black LGBTQ artists following Trump's orders. But when we dig deeper into this, they use the term Black very loosely. I want to kind of unpack this because Black is traditionally for people who are Black Americans. But let's go ahead and unpack that part first. So let's unpack it. There's a long history of the arts being attacked by conservative forces. The 51-year-old Canadian artist and curator told The Guardian. He said, this is how we see fascism start to unfold. So we start to see this term fascism roll out from a Canadian, mind you, being mad that his exhibit can't be exhibited here in America. Here's the exhibit. So as a Black woman, I'm not really in love with this being his depiction. This is based on this book, Love, Sex, and Law in the Caribbean. Caribbean? I thought it was about Black people, though. We talk in the Caribbean, and this is how he's depicting. Okay. So he says that the whole exhibit was based off of his book, which explores sexuality, ecology, and human rights. And he said they never had a bad thing to say about it at all, never challenged this work. And he said, I have not put more resources or time into any project. This was to be the feather in my cap because it was a very personal project. I grew up in Trinidad, but I thought he was Black. He's a Trinidadian. But we were told that this was all about Black history being erased, but it really seems like it's actually more so about LGBTQ history, plus being pulled out of Black history museums. Because why is Black history being usurped for LGBTQ plus history? Because this has been my issue all along. I've actually struggled with this when I used to have my marketing clients and they were predominantly Black. I actually had a client who during Black History Month, this is the campaign she wanted me and my husband to run for her. She wanted us to send out an entire email blast with a partnership for transitioning drugs. Transitioning pharmaceuticals was the big partnership that she wanted to roll out during Black History Month because she wanted to do a big LGBTQ push for Black History Month. So actually, like I said, Trump didn't erase Black history. Trump got that out of our museums and he cracked down on that. And then they said, this is how fascism unfolds. And they told us it was a Black guy, but it's actually a Canadian who's from Trinidad with a book making us look like animals. So did Trump erase Black history, or did he get the people, the queer movement, out of the Black history movement, which has been repeatedly co-opted? All DEI measures that overwhelmingly benefited the queer community. Not as many Black people as you think. And the man who was doing that exhibit, that Love, Sex in the Wild Museum, he got paid. He got money for that. And it was a DEI program. It was. So a non-American, a Canadian, person from Trinidad got money to go make a gay Black exhibit. And Trump said, no, I don't think so. You know what? I have no issue with that. And I think that you need to go ahead and this whole thing, my opponent, Jonathan Jackson, goes and peddles this disgusting story all over. He tells us all the time that Trump is erasing Black history. Nope. Trump actually supported Black history because he stopped people from perpetuating Blackness in order to get a check to then go make Black people all look gay or like monkeys. Jonathan Jackson, you didn't have what is this? What is that? And for anybody who says that Jonathan Jackson is not consistently perpetuating a lie and even lying to Black people to get them riled up, this is where he puts up a statement saying that Jackson blasts removal of World War II memorials honoring Black veterans, blah, 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 blah. And this is December 16th. So you would think that Trump was removing and erasing the history of African-American soldiers. You would think that he's doing this stateside and that it's just a major push and that it is directly linked to Trump. But then let's unpack this some more. So we see that multiple publications push the same thing. Memorial to Black U.S. soldiers who died in World War II quietly removed. But then we dig deeper and we find out that this is a cemetery that is not even in the U.S. It's in the Netherlands. And out of the 8,200 Americans that are actually buried there, 174 of them are African American. And you would think that maybe this is unequivocally attached to Trump and that is because of Trump, right? But the actual representatives from the actual cemetery said, when they were asked why it was removed, they said, we have to guess for the reasons. So Netherlands cemetery, that's not even in America. Yet Jonathan Jackson wants you to feel like Trump is just erasing Black history, when in all actuality, it's looking like he's just collecting random stories from across the globe and then also defending the erasure of Black history in lieu of LGBTQ plus whatever history. Is this Jonathan Jackson once again not actually standing up for the Black people that he claims to be so for? That's so funny. It's so funny.
When you forget your past, your future is going to be the same as your past, no matter how your past is, be it negative or positive. If you really forget your past, it's going to happen again. That's why it is very important for you to keep the past, for you to check on and remember and see what happened. To make this very clear, I want you to think of some people or some children who are going to come 200 years from now. They are not going to really see what happened to their past generations or to their ancestors. Let me give you a simple exercise. Imagine generations who are going to come 200 or 100 years from now, be it white or Black people. They are not going to experience and see what happened to the Black American past. And when they don't know what happened to them, they are likely to repeat the same thing. And that is why we keep museums. That is why we keep pictures of what happened in the past, for us to learn and get the lessons to continue moving, to not to repeat the same mistakes that we did, to not repeat the same negative things that happened in the past. But what they are trying to do is to delete the past. And if you delete the past, people are not going to learn the past and hence do the same thing which happened in the past. At this point, I'm not going to make the final conclusion and say that what Donald J. Trump is doing with his government against Black American history museums is true or not. But what I can argue is that everything you can do right now, it is going to have effects and impacts to the future generation. And if you think that it is not going to have future generation of people of your same color, you are wrong, because everyone runs from the past. See that white woman who was crying, experiencing the chain that was faced by Black Americans in the past. He was crying and experiencing what really... So this tells you that be it a white people or Black American people, everyone really benefits from those museums. And if you are trying to delete everything up, it's going to have impact on both of the race. So tell me your views in the comment section and don't forget to subscribe on this YouTube channel. Ciao and see you in the next episode.